and I think we're live. Hang on.
Nope.
No?
Yep. Simon,
Yeah, we live?
we are.
We are. Right, cool. Progress.
Finally managing to get something done.
Right, okay. So there's a delay. There's a delay to YouTube. Okay. Right. Right, I'm flipping back and forth with the two screens. So I did
how
put
bad is
in
the delay?
a couple of seconds, I think, between what we're doing now and what comes up on YouTube. But I have put in the description of this video that we will be experiencing technical difficulties.
That kind of delay is normal, though, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, I think so. I was thinking that the Hangouts feature would just let it go straight away, but apparently it doesn't. But I've actually put, please bear with us. We are experiencing technical difficulties. That's part of the description of this video.
That's also a little bit of an understatement for everything that we've been dealing with.
Yeah, it is. But right, okay, so we are live. Hello YouTube. This is you are actually having me on. You are actually having me on.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Right, well, I'm not going to touch it. YouTube, I've just vanished. I'm hearing spirit.
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Oh, I can't believe that.
Do you feel famous? You had your 10 seconds before you couldn't see
Yeah,
anything.
that's it. Yeah. Uh, it might.
So those technical issues that you warned everyone about,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is one of the
This is
technical.
one of them where
Yeah,
you now can't actually see Simon anymore.
yeah. I've now vanished. So right, well, it's some progress. We're sort of a third of the way there ish. Um, but yeah, hello YouTube. This is the first episode of a little bit of wait. Woo,
Hi.
hi, I'm back. I'm green, but I'm back. Um yeah, hi there guys. This is the first episode of a little bit of me time. We're gonna hopefully do this as a weekly podcast centered around fibromyalgia and ME CFS. For those of you who don't know, that's myalgic encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue syndrome. There's some debate within the community about which one we should call it. Some people feel very strongly on both sides of that, so we use both. Myalgic encephalomyelitis, or ME, is a condition that is characterized by extreme fatigue, cognitive issues, problems with speech, widespread pain, and a few other things. It's very unique to the individual. There is a broad spectrum of symptoms that a lot of people will have some of or all of. It's a very personal illness. We are admins of CFS ME Fibro chat on Facebook. My name's Simon, and this is Laura. She can do her own introduction in a minute. We're just trying to put a podcast out to sort of talk about the symptoms that we suffer from, talk about different treatment options and treatment methods, discuss things that we find helpful or discuss things that we find negative. We're also hoping at some point in the near future to have some guest speakers on, doctors, nutritionists, psychiatrists, therapists. There's a lot of things that tie into this illness. A lot of us with this illness suffer from some degree of mental health issue as well. That is not that we suffer from a mental health issue, and this is often they're related. So a lot of people will suffer from depression and anxiety, which is brought on as a result of the debilitating effects of the condition. That seems to be quite common. Unfortunately, because of that, a lot of people are told that they're simply depressed or they suffer from anxiety, and as a result, they try to treat that, and that their symptoms never really improve. And it can be a real struggle to find a doctor who's understanding and sympathetic towards the condition, and is prepared to give you that diagnosis. Unfortunately, there is no specific testing criteria for this set of illnesses. It is very much a process of elimination. When a doctor has what's the word I'm looking for? When a doctor has exhausted all other possible options for your symptoms, that is often when they will diagnose either fibromyalgia or ME. Fibromyalgia is very, very similar, but very, very distinctly different as well. People with ME, CFS tend to suffer more fatigue. We are generally more tired, more lethargic, and sometimes have a higher degree of cognitive impairment. We call it brain fog. I liken it to having severe flu. It's like having severe flu and not being ill. It's hard to describe. It's sort of the first 15 minutes of a really severe hangover permanently.
I might be able to help with that one.
Oh, good. I find it hard to explain. Whereas fibromyalgia, on the other side, tends to be more pain related. People suffer a lot of neuralgia, so they have a lot of sort of overexcited nerve pain, a lot of joint pain, muscle pain, stiffness. They do have the fatigue and the brain fog also, but it seems to be more pain related. The way that it's now diagnosed, to my understanding, is they actually now call it CFS fibromyalgia spectrum disorder. That's my official diagnosis, is chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia spectrum disorder. So we all sort of fit somewhere on that scale. It is possible to have both very, very severely. It's entirely possible to have really severe ME and really, really severe fibromyalgia at the same time. Vice versa, it's possible to have both of them to a mild extent. So that's a little bit more about the illnesses. We do have some sort of a list. Honestly, there is a plan. I promise. There's kind of a plan. But yeah, like I said, my name's Simon. I'm one of the admins. I started the group CFS ME Fibro Chat about 2 and a bit years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I was really at a loss. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I went from being absolutely fine to having a severe viral infection to never fully recovering. I was having really severe health anxiety. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I tried to make a passing joke to a nurse whilst I was in hospital, and all I said to her was, look, one of 3 things is happening. I went, I'm either dying, going mad, or being possessed. It has to be one of the 3. Literally, just to try and give myself something to laugh at, to try and get through it. The nurse who I was sat with, her response to that was, well, have you considered seeing a priest? Whilst I was in the midst of a panic attack, not particularly helpful. Has completely ruined horror films for me. Cannot now watch horror films. Sparks my anxiety. Genuinely upsetting. But yeah, that was how it started. I felt very alone. I had a suspicion that this was maybe what was wrong with me, through a friend of mine who suffers. I thought that this was maybe what it was. So I started the group just so I had people to talk to on hand 24 hours a day. So when I was feeling anxious, I had other people there who could empathise and say, no, that it's absolutely fine. It'll pass. Been through it. You'll be all right. And it really was of benefit to me. We're now nearly 10,000 members strong, in my opinion, in a very short space of time. And it's a lovely, lovely group. It's a really nice group of people. We have our issues the same as any other large group of people, and we have our disagreements, but everybody is fairly amicable. No one really, I was going to say shouts or screams, but no one's ever really abusive.
No one's got
And
the energy to argue.
no, that's it. Yeah, yeah. I think that's a big part of it. Yeah, none of us have got the energy to argue. Um, but yeah, I mean that's sort of my story surrounding it. Um, I will pass you over to Laura. She can explain to you a little bit more, sort of about how it affects her and her history and her story a bit, and then we'll try and explain to you what we're hoping to do with this in the future.
Hey guys, so as Simon just said, I'm Laura. I'm very, very nervous to start this, I will openly admit. So, um, basically, I was diagnosed with ME when I was 8, after constant tonsillitis. I was, so, since being a baby, I was always poorly. I always had a viral infection. There was always something. I was diagnosed with ME and depression at 8. Then I've actually, about a year ago, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome, which, depending who you talk to, as Simon said, ME and chronic fatigue syndrome, some people say they're the same thing. Some people say that they're different. Some people get really offended if you call it the wrong thing. To me, I just say it don't personally, from a personal point of view, it doesn't matter to me. You can call it either, but some people get really, really upset. So I'll just cover my bases there. Yeah, this is the only life I've known. It's a bit weird me explaining it because I can't do any comparison at all to like a normal person's life. Like, you tell me that I need to go on a bike, or most people go, all right, then you do this. I still can't ride a bike. I still can't swim because they're things that you learn as a child. I was too ill. I was at home. My mum gave up her job, her dream job, to care for me. So the stuff like learning to swim, I had thousands of lessons. And then we found out I was poorly. And then within 6 months of finding out I was poorly, I was in a wheelchair. I'm out of a wheelchair currently. I'll just put that out there. So yeah, it's ups and downs. Like, I don't even really know how to explain it. Basically, you just get a handle on something, and then something new comes along. In our group, that me and Simon run, last night I had a rant. It was quite a big rant for me, because normally I don't tend to post, but I just got a handle on my pain, and basically last night my hand gave up, and then it went from my wrist, my hand giving up, to I couldn't actually lift my arm. I've got a 10-month-old baby who weighs a lot anyway, and even though I couldn't lift my arm, I've still got to feed my child. These are the everyday issues. People say people say that it's all in your head. Doctors say it's all in your head. You're depressed. You need to take this anxiety medicine. You need to take this. You need to take that. Okay, well, then none of that worked. So here you go. Take this. And suddenly, at one point, I was on 36 tablets a day. I was 21. Like, the modern medicine isn't helping us right now.
No.
So their answer is either give us antipsychotics, which, yes, we do have mental health problems. I personally have depression, anxiety, and borderline personality disorder. But that doesn't make me any less ill or any less in pain.
Yeah. And
I
and this is, would you suffer from those conditions? Would you have that depression? Would you have that
no,
anxiety if it wasn't for the physical health conditions? This is it. My anxiety exists solely around my health.
my
I've never had
depression
anxiety.
my depression was diagnosed at the same time. To diagnose an 8-year-old with depression
Hmm.
kind of gives that answer away. My
Yeah.
anxiety stems from the fact that socially I don't know how to behave. Like, I
Hmm.
struggle to know what's normal behavior, because when you're at school, you learn your social norms. In When I was in year 4, this might not make sense to a lot of people, but my attendance rate was 34%.
Hmm.
And that is your crucial building blocks for
Yeah.
life.
Hmm.
Um, if you don't have that interaction, then obviously there's bleeds onto other issues. So my anxiety is social anxiety, and the fact that I don't actually, under normal circumstances, talk to people about this. This is my illness.
Yeah.
This is something I've got to deal with. But at the end of the day, we're not going to get any help if I keep being quiet. If every single person says no, listen to me for 5 minutes, we might actually get somewhere.
That's
Um,
it. I think because it's an invisible illness as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
people see me. Um, Once a week, I go to a play group with my 2 kids,
Hmm.
and people see me at that one day a week, that morning a week for 2 hours. I'm happy, I'm smiley, I do my mummy thing. But at the end of the day, what people don't know is it takes me 3 days to recover
Hmm.
from that 2 hour interaction.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to juggle being a mum and juggle being ill at the end of the day. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not even 25 yet. I'm 25 in July, and I use specialist cutlery
Hmm.
when I'm at home because it's more comfortable for my hands. I wasn't going to
Yeah.
mention this, but at the end of the day, that's how I can feed. It's down to how I feed myself.
Yeah.
Um, I know that becoming increasingly more likely that when I'm not pushing a pram anymore, I'm going to at least need walking sticks,
Hmm.
because I can't walk anywhere at
Yeah.
all. Um, the best way I've found of explaining ME and fibromyalgia, um, to be honest, because I can't separate the two, because I've always had the two, even though I've only just been diagnosed with one of them. They've always been the
Yeah.
same. So the best way I can explain it is, when you've had flu, so you're all run down, you feel like you've been hit by a bus, right?
Hmm.
But you're just starting to recover. So you've got enough in your brain to know that you are still ill, but your body will
Yeah.
not respond.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. Well, that's yeah. Yeah.
so
I understand that completely.
so your body, you know that your body isn't working, you know that your body isn't normal.
Hmm.
You've got enough.
Yeah.
When
That's
you've
it.
got full blown flu, you haven't got a clue what's going on. But
No.
being in mine, and I'm guessing Simon's body here, you know exactly what's going on. You
Yeah.
can't control it. You can't.
Hmm.
You feel trapped
Yeah.
inside your own body,
Yeah. Very much
um,
so. Very much so.
and betrayed, to be honest, because all these
Yeah.
people are doing these normal things, and they don't need to take you. My friends all ring me and say, right, we're going for a 10-minute walk to
Hmm.
the park because it's a nice day. We're taking the kids and we're going to take them to the park. And I say no. They think it's because I'm just being awful. I don't care. What people don't understand is it literally robs you of everything. By the
Hmm.
time I got there, I wouldn't be able to interact with the people
Yeah.
there. The other people there make it overstimulating. So
Yeah.
at home, I have my fish tank. I've lived in my property for 2 years, and last middle of last month got my first TV, and even then it spends most of its time off, because it's too much. There's too much noises. There's too much. It's cold. It's hot. It's everything will overstimulate. Anything
Yeah.
can set you off.
Yeah, a lot of sensory overload. That's it. Mine's noise. If I've got a lot of noise going on, if my kids are playing, and my eldest is watching her phone and the telly's on in the background, sometimes I can be fine with it. But then other times it's far too much. The other thing I really struggle with, this is really bizarre. Another sort of key characteristic is audio sensitivity. There is a specific name for it, and I can't remember what it is. But certain sounds we can just find absolutely unbearable. Myself, and I personally, is Velcro. I can't stand the sound of Velcro. It literally gives me goosebumps and makes me cringe. It's the weirdest thing. I've had that ever since I was a kid. Ever since I was really young. Even literally now, imagining the sound of Velcro brings me out in goosebumps. It's really bizarre. And as a kid, I used to tell people I was allergic to Velcro. No one ever understood that. It was only during my diagnosis that I said it as a joke, just an off the cuff comment. I said to the consultant, "Oh yeah, I'm allergic to Velcro as well." She sort of looked at me, and I was like, "I went, it's the sound." I went, "I know it's weird." I went, "It's like nails down a chalkboard." I think I went, "It just gives me really bad goosebumps. It makes me feel cold. I don't like it." And she was like, "Oh no," she went, "That's fairly common." She went, "A lot of people have sort of real sensitivity to specific sounds." Never heard of it before, but yeah, it's one of them things. But it's very easy to get very overwhelmed very quickly, without realizing. I think one of the things as well is they call it payback, and that's you can wake up on a Monday and actually not feel well as such. It never goes away. It's always there. You can wake up on a Monday and feel pretty good, and be like, do you know what? Today's going to be a good day. I'm going to get some stuff done. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, and you can get it all done, and it can all be absolutely perfect. And then Tuesday you might feel a little bit rough, and then Wednesday you're not getting out of bed. You're bed bound, and that could last a week for some people.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself to be as ill as some people that have this condition. I'm very lucky to not suffer as badly as some people do. But yeah, it can be the slightest little thing can just wipe you out for a week, or payback.
Yeah, Simon. When I was at my worst, I was almost completely bedbound. I'd go to school for a morning and then spend 2 weeks and I would not move. To the point where my mum actually went out and bought like packs of cards, so I wouldn't have to hold my hands up. So like card holders. So I'd still be learning numbers and still learning like playing gin rummy. So my brain would still be thinking, and it actually turns out I find out all these years later that the amount of times that I'd just fall asleep in the middle of a game, and she always had a book next to her down the side of her bed because I didn't move from my mum and dad's bed. She'd have a book that she'd just, when I fell asleep, she'd pick the book up and carry on reading from when I fell asleep 20 minutes ago. And then I'd wake up, she'd put the book down, and I could wake up and, well, when did you pick up the book? She'd, oh, it's all right, darling. And then by 20 seconds later, I'd forgotten she had the book in her hand because the memory issues is ridiculous.
That's it. Yeah, that's another thing. The memory. Oh my god, the memory issue. That was one of the hardest things actually for me to deal with. Is the and to be honest, a lot of people say this. The cognitive impairment is the hardest thing to cope with and the hardest thing to deal with. I love numbers. I love mathematics. I always have, and I always will. To the point where I actually orientated my career around it. I used to work in the gambling trade. I worked in the casino. I was a croupier. I love playing with numbers. since becoming ill, my ability to do that has just fallen through the floor. I used to be able to do really long, complicated sums in my head, without pen and paper. I'd just run them off, and it was fun. Like, my missus used to actually say to me, "She went, I can hear you thinking." She used to look at me and say, "I can hear you thinking, go to sleep." And she knew that I was working money out in my head. She knew I'd be getting paid in a couple of days. So I'd be sitting there adding up and say, right, this has got to go there. And that's what I'd do. And that was fun for me. I enjoyed that. Now I really, really, really struggle with it. It's something I find incredibly difficult. I can still do the maths, but I have to sit there with a pen and paper to
Reminding
work
you
out.
of the numbers.
Yeah, I still enjoy it, but I just can't. The cognitive impairment is the worst bit. Trying to have a conversation with someone and sort of having, I know what is in my head that I want to say. I know the words that I want to say. And then I get sort of halfway through a sentence and just get tongue tied and just can't get the words out. I just physically can't get the words out. And it's awful. We had the vicar here the other day because we're getting married in November. And I was trying to have a conversation with the vicar, and I just sort of got really, really tongue tied. Just couldn't get my words out. And it's frustrating. It is very, very frustrating. I was talking to a doctor recently about this, and he said people are coming to him with symptoms, and they're saying, "Look, this is the problem. My life is awful. Like, my life is really, really bad." And the advice that he is given is to prescribe antidepressants. And he said, these people aren't depressed. They are sad. There is a difference. These people aren't suffering from depression. They are genuinely sad. He goes, when I've got someone in my office who has gone from, some people like athletes, there's a few athletes that suffer. And he goes, I've got people in my office who have been marathon runners, who have been triathletes, who have been football players, who have gone from sort of running 5 days a week or playing football or whatever their said sport is to being bedbound. And I'm told to give this person antidepressants to make them feel better. He goes, well, this person's not depressed. They're sad. They've got a genuine reason to feel the way they feel. And I'm told to give them antidepressants. He goes,
it's because it's easy.
Yeah, he said, but it doesn't help anyone. All it does is it stops you feeling sad. He goes, but they come with their own sort of myriad of problems, their own myriad of symptoms. And I think I think often a lot of us feel fobbed off. And I don't think we are necessarily being fobbed off. I think it's just the advice that doctors are told to follow and the criteria they have to work to isn't up to treating the illness that we've got.
But in the same breath, see, this is why me and Simon came on together, because we don't always agree. In the same breath, when I was speaking to doctors in the past and pain specialists in the biggest hospital near me, one of the main pain specialists at my last meeting, his answer was, what did you want? And
oh, you've frozen. Like I said, guys, we are experiencing technical difficulties. Laura appears to have frozen. I'm going to attempt to get her back. Give me 1 second. But Laura makes a very, very valid point there, actually. That does sometimes happen. We will go to a doctor's, we'll come home, go back, come home, go back, come home, go back. And eventually a doctor will just go, look, what do you want? What do you want me to do? I'm in a position where I can prescribe you pretty much whatever you want. I can't do anything. What do you want? And unfortunately, unfortunately, that's not helpful. in my opinion. I actually agree with Laura on that. That isn't helpful, because it just sort of, I don't know, it just leaves us sort of high and dry. It's very difficult now, obviously, to have a conversation about this because, like I say, Laura's frozen. And now it's a very one-sided conversation. We are trying to get her back. I'm in the process of doing that now. If we're unable to do that, then we will very shortly call it a night. But I can fill you in on some of the other stuff we're hoping to do with this podcast. Like I say, we're aiming to do this weekly, if possible, family commitments and work commitments, etc., excluded. I personally, oh, and now my camera's gone as well. This is going really, really well. Yeah, like I say, we are hoping to be able to get this done weekly. Oh, there we go. I'm back. Weekly, depending on commitments. We're hoping to have some doctors on. I've spoken to a couple of physicians who might be interested in doing this, dietitians and people like that, because there are a lot of therapies out there that aren't widely available, and there are also therapies out there being offered which at best are ineffective and at worst are actually very harmful, and actually to an extent potentially lethal. We've actually had to ban certain pages from posting within our group. The reason being is that some of the medical advice that was being given out on there is very, very, very dangerous. There was an article, I can't off the top of my head remember the page that it came from. Like I say, we've had to ban several, but the recommendation was, or the article said something along the lines of cure fibromyalgia with this herbal tea. And the ingredients in this herbal tea at first looked fairly benign. However, the interaction of those particular herbs with certain medications can be deadly, actually can kill people. That's genuinely not an exaggeration. And those medications and those interactions and those consequences, although rare, some people are prescribed those medications in our group. Things like certain heart medications and grapefruit is a good example. That can cause heart attacks if certain medications are taken with grapefruit. And we've had posts that relate to treating ME and fibromyalgia, CFS, with diet and changes of diet. One of the things that was recommended in that was to take grapefruit. Now, it's more than likely that most people who suffer from a heart condition where they're on one of those medications would be aware of that interaction. But there's always the possibility that they're not, or that they've forgotten, or that they're so desperate that they'll follow it anyway. And that's one of the things we're hoping to do, is to sort of dispel some of the myths, spread awareness for the condition, and hopefully, like I say, we're going to have some guests on. We're going to discuss different treatment options. We're going to discuss diet options. We'll also, the channel this is going up on is this is what I mean about the cognitive impairment. It's my channel, and I can't remember the name of it. But the end of it says news and reviews. I think it's one second, and I shall find out, because that will probably be easier. Natural news and reviews. I'm so sorry about that. For some reason, I thought health news and reviews, because we're talking about health. The reviews side of it, we will be putting news articles up occasionally if we hear something that we feel is relevant to the conditions. then that will come up. In regards to the reviews, that's not necessarily going to be actual reviews of products. We won't be doing infomercials, put it that way. That will, however, be our opinions on certain products. That could be books, that could be films, that could be medications that we end up on, that could be CBD products. There's a lot of hype surrounding CBD products at the moment. That is something we're actually going to look into. We are hoping to have a specialist who actually deals specifically with cannabis-based treatments for a myriad of illnesses. But she also deals with a lot of pain and Hello.
Hi. I'm
She's
sorry.
returned.
Sorry, I left you to it. I'm sorry.
No, you're all right. I was agreeing with you. I was just sort of talking a little bit more about what we were doing with the channel. But no, yeah, I was agreeing with you. There is a tendency for doctors to sort of get to a point where we've been to them 5 or 6 times. We keep coming back with the same problems, and eventually they wash their hands and say, "What do you want? What do you want?"
Or they just think you're there for medication.
Yes, yeah, and this is another thing. A lot of people find opiate painkillers to be very good at dealing with the pain, because they are fantastic at dealing with the pain. However, they're not fantastic. Me myself personally, I struggle to use them. They're very good at dealing with my pain. However, they really do increase my fatigue, and it will take me 2 or 3 days to recover from 1 or 2 doses of painkillers. So the doctors are now sort of reluctant to prescribe them because they have been overprescribed. But for some people, they're brilliant. They really, really do work. There's some research being done in America at the moment into the treatment of fibromyalgia using a combination of cannabis and Ritalin. And it's literally, like, from my understanding of it is, and I'm not an expert on this by any means, but I am sort of medically minded. I'm training to be a nutritional therapist, so it's kind of things I'm aware of. But the idea of it is that you wake up in the morning with fatigue, you take the Ritalin. The Ritalin is effectively an amphetamine. That's basically what it is. So it wakes you up, it gives you a huge boost of energy. It's like drinking a super coffee. You plow on through your day, and at the end of the day, you use some form of cannabis, whether that be smoked, vaped, eaten, sublingual drop, balm, or whatever it happens to be, your own sort of personal route of ingestion, to knock you out, to bring you down from the amphetamine and put you to sleep. And then you wake up the next day and do it all again. Now, I don't necessarily think that's a particularly healthy way of dealing with an illness, but it's showing promise. For some people, it really is working for them. They're able to function
Normally.
I was going to say inverted commas in a normal world. In the normal world at large, they can go to work. It's helping them manage their fatigue. It's helping them manage their pain, because there's a lot of evidence to suggest that cannabis therapies are very, very good at dealing with pain. So it is helping these people. I do not know if that's sustainable in the long term. I mean, that might be an option if you know you have an event coming up that you have to be on the ball for. Then that may be a treatment option that works for you. I was on Ritalin as a child for ADHD, and I don't think being on it long term is particularly sustainable. It caused me a lot of problems. Don't get me wrong, it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. It just made me want to do woodwork. I remember being very, very hyper, and then all of a sudden being very, very focused and wanting to build things out of wood. That was my experience of Ritalin. Very bizarre. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the therapies which is now being sort of piloted and trialed in America, and some people are getting really good results with it. But like I say, the long-term sustainability is something I can't comment on. But yeah, this is why I'm hoping to have some doctors come on the channel to actually speak more in depth about these treatments and about diet and lifestyle changes. I am a firm believer in that. I think there's a big difference between treating an illness and curing an illness.
Mm.
I do not believe at the moment there is a cure for fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome. I do, however, believe that there are a number of things out there that have the ability to treat it,
Yeah.
and at least reduce the symptoms. I do not believe it's a one size fits all scenario either. I think
No.
that what may be really, really good for someone may set somebody else back in a serious way. So it is very much a case of tailoring your therapy to you, finding what works for you and doing that. Um, so I've found, me myself personally, I can treat my condition fairly well through my diet. I follow a ketogenic diet. It doesn't get rid of any of my symptoms, but what it does do is stabilize my energy levels.
Mm.
It it makes me more aware of the amount of energy I actually have to use. As a result of that, I don't push myself too far and I don't crash a couple of days later. I still have off days where I will push myself too hard and I will crash, but a ketogenic diet has made me much more aware of my energy levels. Um, so I think that things like diet can really help. I think they can help all health conditions, to be fair, because I think that if you can optimize your nutrition and optimize that area of your health, then anything that's left over is an actual symptom of your illness. It is not a symptom that's being exacerbated by poor overall health, if that makes sense.
Whereas diet makes no difference with me. Absolutely no difference. I have tried all sorts, absolutely all sorts. Where this is where Simon was saying that Simon said, um, that it's so individual.
Mm.
Simon's was helped there. Simon's is being helped with diet. My diet, it doesn't matter if I survive on McDonald's or if I go dairy free, wheat free, vegan, and only eat dust. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter with mine what I eat at all. But if I don't, I've got to have a soak in the bath every single night.
Mm-hmm.
And if I skip that, then the next day I am literally being heaved out of bed because my muscles have and my joints have locked up.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only once a week I get my little ones and my other half are in my room in the morning because I don't even have to say to my other half anymore that I'm locked up and can't move, but I want to see the kids. He'll just bring them through.
Yeah.
Because it's so normal, like, to just not be able to move. But that's if I skip my bath. I can't just get a shower instead.
Yeah.
And certain bath products help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the just saying now we are not being sponsored by anybody. We're genuinely just
Yes.
trying to help you. So if any of us talk about in the future or anything, talk about any products,
Yeah.
it's genuinely from people who are trying to help you, not
That's what I was
because
just
they
saying about the review side of the page, is
like,
that we will review things, but they're not paid. We're not sponsored. It's not an infomercial. It's just us giving our opinion
yeah,
on things that work for us personally.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it's not. We're not advertising. We're not paid. It's nothing to do with that. And the review side of it, like I say, it's not just products. It's also to do with things like books. There is a lady on our page, and her name escapes me, and That no, her name's gone. But she actually writes children's books to explain things like
Mm.
fibromyalgia to children if their parents suffer, so the children can understand the illness. Reviewing things like her books. We do not allow selling or advertising on our page.
No.
This YouTube channel is separate to our page. We are admins of that group, but this is separate to that page. So if people contact us and would like us to look into their products, we have a little bit more freedom here to do that. But we are not paid. We are not doing this for money. This is just to give you our opinions on things that cross our path. If they help us, we'll tell you. If they don't help us, we'll tell you.
Yeah.
There are several films that have come out in recent years relating to this. We will be. Yeah, I'll spring this on you now.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. Cheers.
There's a film. Hang on, I'll tell you what it's called. I just had it up on my phone. We will watch this film at some point.
We
It's
will.
called Unrest.
Yes, I still haven't seen that. The reviews
Neither
are
have I. I watched a
fantastic.
few minutes of it last night, but I'll tell you what we'll do is we will watch it and then we'll review the film.
Yes, to be fair, I was talking to Joe the other day, about getting it off, because you can buy it on Amazon and Netflix and all of them,
It's on
can't you?
YouTube. It's
Hmm?
on YouTube. The whole film.
Is it really?
Yep, it's on YouTube. You can watch it unofficially on YouTube for free, or you can pay £3.50 and actually buy it. Or you can buy films on YouTube now.
Oh, I see. I'm so
Um,
behind with tech.
yeah, no. You literally, if you're logged into your
Right.
Google account, you go onto YouTube,
Mm.
type in a film, and it will come up and it just says a price. You just click on it and it just bills it to your Google account.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was
Or
planning on watching that one anyway.
in your case, it'd bill it to your
iCloud.
iPhone
Yeah.
Apple thing. I don't know how that works.
Either way, it takes
I
it
lo-
from my bank account.
yeah, that's it. But it was like three. I think it was like £3.50 to watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, it's on there for free. It's on Netflix as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, things like that. That's the kind of thing that I want to review.
Yeah. But Radox. I was
Yes.
going to say Radox bath salt. They've got a muscle soak bath salt,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and this was found at our local corner shop. Because they'd ran out of bubble bath. My other half brought it home and went, I found this and wondered what it was like. It was like £1.
Oh
And
wow.
it was one of the best products that I've tried. And as I say, I have different things every night just to make it a bit more interesting that I'm sat in a
Yeah.
tub of water.
Yep. No, that's one of the things I do miss. I do miss being able to soak in the bath. Unfortunately, a few years ago, I had a bad accident. Well, actually, right, to be specific, I had issues with my shoulder and my back previously to this. But it's always long-winded to explain. And I had a car crash, and I ended up with quite severe whiplash. So when anybody asked me about it, I just say I got injured in a car crash because it's easier to do that than it is to explain everything else. It's like sometimes when I used to explain having fibromyalgia or ME, I just said I had a head injury.
Mm.
I had a head injury. That's why I have my symptoms, because it was just so much easier to just say, "Oh, I had a head injury." People seem to be more receptive to that
Yeah.
than to fibro. It was very, very weird. I found that quite surreal. But yeah, so I really struggled getting in and out of the bath. We tried for years. I mean, literally for years. All we asked the council to do, because we lived on the 11th floor, so our water pressure was awful. We asked the council to install a water pump so I could put a shower above the bath, get in and out of the bath, and have a shower in it. That was all I wanted. Well, 3 years later, they gave us a whole new bathroom and installed no pump. Made the bath smaller because it had to be an eco bath to conform with their building regs and their standards. So we lost like half the size of the bath, lost it in length, lost it in width, lost it in depth. Ended up with no pump on the shower. Complained. And in the end, they just moved us and just gave us a whole new flat, which was lovely. We ended up with we've got a lovely ground floor property. We've got a garden, and it was lovely. However, once we'd moved in, they then came around and ripped the bathroom out that was in here and put in a wet room. So now I've got no bath, but I have got my shower. So yeah, that's
You've
one
got
of
to
the
be
things.
grateful. God's
Yeah,
sake.
I am. I'm incredibly grateful because I live in a lovely area with brilliant schools. But yeah, I do miss having a bath. But that said, um, I have got a birthing pool, so I might just blow that up and fill that up with water and just put a leaf blower in it and just say, yeah, jacuzzi. That
Yeah,
works.
yeah,
Yeah, that one. But yeah, so I do. I understand what you mean. I really do miss having a bath. A lot of people report having really good results with Epsom salt baths.
yeah.
I've
I've
not
noticed
tried
that.
that. I've not tried that myself, but yes, Epsom salts are magnesium sulfate. I think.
Um,
It's magnesium. It's
I
magnesium something.
I didn't respond to Epsom salts. Once I can tell you exactly what's in. Oh no, I
Yeah,
can't. Now I gave them to one of my friends that's got sorry, fibromyalgia.
there you
Oh
are.
god, I gave them to her because I don't respond well to Epsom salts. But don't go on the internet and buy it off the internet because it's really expensive. If you are UK based, I don't know if anyone else sells them as cheap as Baggy Madness do,
Yeah,
but Baggy
magnesium
Madness
sulfate.
do a big kilo bag for like £3 or £4, and
Oh,
they last and last and last. And if you actually follow the instructions, you put a cup in boiling water, like a cup of
yeah,
Epsom salt in boiling water, mix it, put another cup in, mix it again. So you've got like a jug of boiling water with a couple of
yeah,
cups of Epsom salt, and then mix that into your bath. Don't just pour it in,
yeah,
or it doesn't dissolve.
yeah,
So generally, I don't read instructions. I'm one of these people where when it comes to DIY, it'll end up how it ends up. It should be
yeah.
vaguely the right shape. When it comes to stuff like this, I always pay attention. Uh,
Yes,
and it's also seemed to be the difference in the group on people that do it properly and people that don't. It works well for the people that do it properly, but it just didn't work
yes,
for me.
yeah, yeah.
That
I've
was a
noticed
really
that as
long
well. Actually,
explanation. I'm sorry.
yeah. And you're all right. But no, yeah, no, I have noticed that actually that in regards to medication and treatment, people who follow it more strictly tend to get better results. I think there may actually be um, I don't want to use the word placebo effect because that's not really the right word,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
think there
you're
may be
walking
a
on dangerous
psychosomatic
territory.
issue there. If you're following something very, very strictly and very, very regimentedly, then you become more invested in it. And if you're more invested in it, I think it's more likely to work for
Positive
you.
effects.
Yes, I think it's the sort of the almost almost akin to homeopathic medicine in regards to that. It works because you believe it to work. Um, please don't anybody get on my back about homeopathic medicine. I'm not knocking homeopathy at all. If it works for you, it works for you. I am just purely speaking from a scientific perspective of there is no reason for it to work. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm saying there is currently no accepted scientific evidence for why it does work.
Yes.
I'm not knocking homeopathy because that's a whole another thing I don't want to. That's a can I don't
Yeah,
want to open.
you'll offend me at that point too.
Yeah, that's a can I don't want to open. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm not saying people don't get benefit from it. I'm saying that the science that is currently available doesn't show any reason for it to work.
There
There
is
is
not
no.
enough scientific backing for you to currently back it.
Yes, yes,
There you
exactly. I know people who get really good benefit from homeopathy. My dad, like I say, my dad works for a major pharmaceutical company. Um, so in regards to sort of science and medicine, that's somebody who should sort of know what they're on about. He uses homeopathic hay fever medicine. He took so many antihistamines. I remember as a kid, he took all sorts of stuff. Nothing ever worked. Takes homeopathic hay fever medicine. It doesn't get hay fever anymore.
yeah.
It works for him, but I can't find anything in the literature to suggest why. And it's some people will show really, really good improvement from using things like homeopathic sleeping medications. I've sat there and watched somebody eat an entire box of them, and nothing happened to them. So I think it's one of them things where if you do follow a regimen very, very closely, very, very strictly, you become invested in that. And I think then maybe it does have more of a chance of working. The placebo effect is an observable effect. We know it works. So I think maybe that's why some people do have very good results following certain things that we don't necessarily understand, but it does work for them.
Yeah. See, I don't follow it quite as well. I don't follow it regimented at all. To be honest, I just use it when I need it.
Mm-hmm.
But and again, I'm only talking about stuff that's UK based because that's where I'm from, so that's what I can access.
Yeah.
Unless there's something specific that someone recommends that I need to get shipped in, then I will.
Yeah.
But Lush do a lotion called
Mm-hmm.
Sleepy,
All
and
right.
it's basically it helps my insomnia. If I'm having a bad night with my insomnia,
Mm-hmm.
it helps and knock me out.
Yeah.
I don't drink.
That's another thing. A lot of people with fibro and ME suffer from insomnia. I do myself. It's horrendous.
Too tired to sleep is the
Yeah.
best
Yeah.
explanation.
Yeah. Absolutely exhausted and just cannot shut off.
If anybody ever asks you why you suffer from a fibro or ME and you can't sleep and you suffer with insomnia, they say, well, that doesn't make sense. Just get some sleep. Right. Tell them, compare yourself to a child. So compare yourself to a toddler that's gone past they are shattered, but they have gone
Yeah.
past their point of no return.
Yeah. I never thought
We
about that
live,
actually. It's
we
very akin
live
to that.
at the point of no return.
Yeah.
The I can't remember what they call it, but that barrier where they say you need to get a kid in bed before that, we're
Yeah.
always past it.
Yeah, someone did. There was some research I was reading, and it was talking specifically about sleep cycles. And from what I can gather from it, I'm not sure how substantiated this research is, but what it seemed to suggest was that actually being tired seems to go in a cycle. So you will sort of you'll get progressively more and more tired, and if you don't go to sleep in that window where you can fall asleep, then you go into the next one. And once you're in the next one, you then have to wait until you go back to the sleepy stage. And people who suffer from insomnia have a longer cycle period.
Yeah, I could see how that works.
Most people will have a sort of a cycle period which is actually based around light. So the circadian rhythm, you wake up when it's light, you go to sleep when it's dark. People with insomnia have an extended circadian, according to this research, they have an extended circadian rhythm. So you sort of, if you don't fall asleep when you're tired, then you're awake, and it's basically like you've skipped sleep and you're awake now for another day.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've told your body, right, I'm not going to sleep tonight, so now it's tomorrow, and you're awake. And that's, like I say, I'm not sure how substantiated that research is, but it does make sense.
Yeah. Logically,
Yeah,
it makes sense. Whether or not it's human body accepts the thought process is another
yeah,
matter entirely.
yeah. This is it. Yeah, there is a there is a big thing in science. There, the science can prove a lot of things, but whether my body agrees with it or not is another one entirely. Um, But it's funny enough, on the subject of other research, what I was saying to you earlier about the fact that people with fibro and ME now can't give blood in the UK.
Yeah.
I actually read that on another group who I won't name drop at the moment because I'm talking to their admin.
Yeah,
But
you don't want to upset anyone.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping though. I think actually I might have just had a message from them. I'm not 100% sure. I will check soon. But they are a specifically ME related group who is very, very similar to ours, from what I can gather. I'm hoping to get some input from a couple of their admin
Yeah,
and
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
have their admin on the show as well.
yeah,
Maybe get one or two of their admins, so there'd be sort of a panel of maybe 4 or 5 of us as opposed to just the two of us. And then obviously, it'd be nice to get a sort of a broader spectrum of opinions. Because one of the things that does concern me is I don't want this to just be an echo chamber. I don't want this to just be us giving our opinions on what works for us and no one necessarily arguing with our opinions on what works.
yeah,
I do want this to be a place for open and frank discussion. For instance, the PACE trial, um, that suggested things like graded exercise therapy and cognitive behavioural therapy. There are some people that swear by that and say, look, here's the results of the PACE trial. It's a trial. There's the results. Do this. And some people that's really, really knocked and put people back a long way. And a lot
yeah,
of sufferers do not support that. And now there is some evidence, and I'm not particularly well versed on this, but there is evidence to suggest that actually that the trial data was skewed and that wasn't accurate.
yeah,
Um, so there are a lot of groups who now do not support that, do not encourage that. But like I say, I don't support it. I don't encourage it. However, I am of the opinion. Do you know what? If you do it and it works for you, brilliant. I'm really happy for you.
yeah,
I will support any individual in any activity that doesn't cause them harm and improves their symptoms.
yeah.
That
See, there's also when it comes to different ways of looking at stuff, there's also it's all the science is always changing. So it used to
Mhm.
be the 8 or 12 point my brain fog um point system for testing fibromyalgia. They'll poke you in it's 12 points, won't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's 12.
They poke you in these 12 places of your body, and if you shout "ow," then and have these other symptoms, then it must be fibromyalgia. But
Yeah,
I've found while looking at our group that if you're in our group and watching this, don't worry, you're not our guinea pigs, but we're using you as explanations.
yeah,
Um, that don't have those pressure points.
yeah,
Personally, for a long time, I had the effects of fibromyalgia, but because I didn't have because where they poked me, I didn't squeal.
yeah,
I couldn't be diagnosed. But now they're looking at it again, where it's non-pressure points fibromyalgia. So
yeah,
the science is always changing too.
yeah. This is
So
it. It is ever evolving. It is. It's there. So much is being done so quick that I think from a medical standpoint, it can be quite difficult to actually, unless you're a specialist, as a GP who's doing a referral, it can be difficult to actually be completely up to date. And I think us actually as patients kind of have a responsibility to inform doctors to an extent on what
yeah,
the latest research suggests. One of the issues I had is I've got a lot of pre-existing injuries. I've got injuries to my ankles, to my legs, to my knees, to my hips, to my spine, to my ribs, my shoulder. I've got all sorts of illnesses. I was a very
fall
rough
into
and tough.
bits that you say.
Yeah, like if I was a horse, then I wouldn't have survived the Grand National. Do you know what I mean? It's one of them. Um, I've got all sorts of injuries. But so when I was trying to get a diagnosis, that no one was really sure what was the fibromyalgia and what was an existing injury,
Yeah,
and that was a real sticking point for me because I was sort of stuck in this position of trying to explain that it's pain, but it's not the same pain as the pain that I'm in all the time. Anyway, this is now a new
yeah,
pain that I'm in all the time. And unless you're speaking to someone who is specifically trained in pain management, that's hard to explain to a GP. that
Yeah.
it's pain, but it's not the same pain, but it is the same pain, but it's in a different place, but it's in the same place.
Yeah.
It's
Or I've got
very,
that pain and then I've got this pain on top of it, but then the new
yeah,
pain seems to wiggle about a bit depending on what time of the day it is and where the
yeah,
moon's shining,
yes,
and the weather.
yeah. Oh god, yeah. The weather that plays so many people within the group.
Yeah.
It's quite bizarre actually. You can sort of and oh,
You gone again? Is it me? I think it's me. I've disappeared again. I'm not sure if I'm back. Nope. Hello? Anybody? I've got to admit, my hair looks fucking Nope.
Okay, well, this is now on my phone where it says live. So I I have no idea. I don't know if this is now um
Is it coming up on
being
your laptop?
not yet. I'm just restoring it now. I don't know what happened.
Did you go down as well?
Yeah.
I thought it
Yeah,
was just
yeah.
the my internet on my phone, to be honest.